Beneath a night sky brimming with stars, where the vastness of the universe whispered secrets humanity had yet to uncover, a peculiar tale began to unfold. It wasn't on Earth that this story took root, nor was it in the shimmering void of space. Instead, it began in a place far removed from human imagination, a world hidden in the folds of the cosmos, where beings unlike anything we'd ever conceived thrived in their own curious ways. On this distant planet, the air shimmered with energy, and towering cities gleamed with technology that made Earth's greatest inventions seem like child's play. At the heart of this alien civilization was a formidable military force, renowned for its discipline, precision, and an intelligence that rivaled the stars themselves. These extraterrestrial soldiers were not only trained in combat, but in understanding the peculiarities of other species, and among the many civilizations they had observed, none baffled, amused, or occasionally infuriated them more than humanity. The story begins with Commander Zorath, a seasoned veteran of the Galactic Observation Corps. With his gleaming cobalt skin and piercing amber eyes, Zorath exuded an air of authority. But behind his stern demeanor lay a curiosity that bordered on obsession, an unquenchable thirst to understand the species known as humans. For years, Zorath had led missions to observe Earth, documenting human behavior, technological progress, and cultural nuances. The humans' unpredictability fascinated him, but their arrogance puzzled him even more. "They mock what they don't understand," Zorath said one evening, addressing his team in the war room of their massive interstellar vessel. His voice carried the weight of frustration, tempered by a hint of amusement. The holographic table before him displayed a looped recording of humans attempting to explain gravity in comically oversimplified terms, followed by an experiment gone hilariously wrong. "Look at this," he said, gesturing toward the display. They barely grasp the concept, yet they laugh at its mysteries. Lieutenant Werner, Zorath's trusted second-in-command, leaned forward, her silver-tinted hair catching the light. "Commander, is it not the nature of lesser beings to mock what they fear? Perhaps it is their way of coping with the unknown." Zorath nodded but didn't respond immediately. His gaze lingered on the recording. Humans had accomplished much, sending machines to Mars, probing the edges of their solar system, and unraveling some of the universe's deepest truths. Yet their hubris often blinded them to the enormity of what they didn't know. That arrogance, Zorath believed, would one day lead to their downfall. The commander's musings were interrupted by an alert. The room darkened as the holographic display shifted to show a live feed from an observation drone hovering above Earth. The screen focused on a human scientist in a lab, gesturing excitedly to a group of onlookers. Behind him, a complex apparatus hummed with energy. "What are they doing now?" Werner asked, her tone laced with skepticism. Zorath's expression darkened. "Testing gravity," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. The words hung in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. The experiment began, and for a moment, everything seemed to progress smoothly. The scientist adjusted the controls, and the apparatus emitted a low, steady hum. But then, as if defying logic, the device malfunctioned. A surge of energy rippled through the room, and the humans scrambled to shut it down. In their panic, they inadvertently activated a secondary mechanism, creating a localized gravitational anomaly. The feed flickered as the drone struggled to maintain its position. "Fools," Zorath muttered, his voice heavy with disdain. "They tamper with forces they barely comprehend, risking not only their own lives but the balance of their fragile world." But what happened next left even the seasoned commander speechless. As the gravitational anomaly expanded, it began to warp space-time itself. Objects in the lab floated, twisted, and then vanished, reappearing moments later in different locations. The humans stared in awe, their fear momentarily eclipsed by wonder. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the anomaly collapsed, leaving the lab in disarray but remarkably intact. Zorath turned to his team, his expression unreadable. "This is why we test gravity," he said, his voice measured but firm. "Before mocking humans, we must first understand their peculiar resilience. Their recklessness is matched only by their tenacity." The room fell silent as the team absorbed the commander's words. For all their flaws, the humans possessed an indomitable spirit, a trait that made them both fascinating and dangerous. As the feed from Earth cut off, Zorath leaned back in his chair, a rare smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "Prepare the report," he instructed Werner, "and mark this incident as classified. The Council doesn't need to know, yet." But deep in his mind, Zorath knew this was just the beginning. Humanity's curiosity and audacity were bound to lead them to greater discoveries, and even greater peril. And for reasons he couldn't yet explain, he felt compelled to watch over them, not as an adversary but as a silent guardian. The question lingered in the air like an unspoken promise. What would humans uncover next, and would they be ready for the consequences? As the report was finalized and filed away in the depths of the Galactic Observation Corps' archives, Zorath couldn't shake the nagging thought that there was more to the humans' experiment than met the eye. It wasn't the first time he had seen them meddling with forces they didn't fully understand, but this time something about their determination and the strange anomaly they had triggered felt different. It was as though humanity was inching toward a line they didn't even know existed. Back on Earth, the scientist who had inadvertently created the gravitational anomaly, Dr. Elias Trent, paced nervously in his cluttered lab. Papers were scattered across every surface, covered in equations and hurriedly scribbled notes. He had spent years chasing the idea that gravity wasn't just a force but a gateway, a key to unlocking deeper truths about the universe. Tonight's experiment was supposed to be a small step toward proving his theory, but it had spiraled into something far beyond his control. Elias paused, staring at the now silent apparatus. It looked unassuming in the dim light, a mess of wires and polished metal, but it held secrets that even he didn't fully grasp. The gravitational anomaly it had created had been brief but undeniable. Objects that should have been pulled toward the Earth had floated freely, as though the planet's grasp on them had been momentarily severed. And then there was the strange, almost musical hum that had filled the air during the event, a sound that seemed to resonate not just in his ears, but deep within his mind. "Dr. Trent," a voice called softly, breaking him out of his thoughts. He turned to see his assistant, Mia Patel, standing in the doorway. Her wide eyes and furrowed brow mirrored the unease he felt but refused to show. "Did you manage to save the data?" Elias asked, his voice steady despite the chaos in his head. Maya nodded, holding up a tablet. "Most of it, but some of the readings don't make sense. The energy levels were off the charts, and there were fluctuations in the space-time continuum. If these numbers are accurate, we didn't just alter gravity, we bent reality itself." Elias took the tablet and scanned the data, his heart racing. He had always believed that gravity was connected to the fabric of the universe, but he never imagined they would see evidence of it so soon or so violently. "We need to be careful," he said finally, handing the tablet back to Mia. "This kind of discovery could change everything, but it could also be dangerous." Unbeknownst to them, the anomaly had caught the attention of more than just Zorath and his team. Deep within Earth's orbit, hidden from human eyes, another ship had been observing the planet. Unlike the disciplined and measured Galactic Observation Corps, this crew had no interest in quietly studying humanity. They were scavengers, opportunists from a rogue faction that thrived on exploiting weaker civilizations. To them, Earth was a treasure trove waiting to be plundered, and the gravitational anomaly was a neon sign pointing to something valuable. Captain Drez, the leader of the rogue faction, leaned back in his chair as his crew replayed the footage of the anomaly. His crimson scales shimmered under the dim light of the control room, and his yellow eyes glinted with greed. "So," he drawled, "the humans have been playing with forces they don't understand. How delightfully reckless." One of his officers, a wiry creature with sharp features and an even sharper tongue, spoke up. "If they've managed to tap into gravity manipulation, they could have stumbled onto technology we could use or sell." Drez's lips curled into a smirk. "Then we'll pay them a visit, quietly. Let's see what secrets they're hiding before they even know we're here." Back on Zorath's ship, the atmosphere was tense. The commander had ordered a round-the-clock analysis of the anomaly, and the more they uncovered, the more concerned he became. The gravitational fluctuations weren't just a random event. They had left a faint but measurable ripple in space-time, one that extended far beyond Earth. It was as if the planet had briefly become the center of a cosmic disturbance, and Zorath couldn't shake the feeling that it had drawn attention from others. Commander Werner said, breaking the silence in the war room. Our long-range sensors have detected an unidentified vessel entering Earth's orbit. It's not one of ours. Zorath's expression darkened. Pirates, he muttered. They must have picked up on the anomaly as well. We need to act fast. Should we engage them? Verna asked, her hand hovering over the controls. Not yet, Zorath replied. We'll monitor their movements. If they make any move toward the humans, we'll intervene. Meanwhile, on Earth, Elias and Mia were oblivious to the galactic drama unfolding above them. They were too focused on piecing together the puzzle of the anomaly. As the hours ticked by, they began to notice patterns in the data, patterns that seemed almost deliberate, as though the anomaly had been trying to communicate something. Look at this, Maya said, pointing to a graph on her screen. These energy spikes, they're spaced apart in a way that matches the Fibonacci sequence. Elias frowned. That's not a natural occurrence. If the anomaly was following a pattern, it means it wasn't just random. It was intentional. The realization sent a chill down his spine. Had they accidentally triggered something? Or had they uncovered a signal from a force far greater than themselves? As they debated their next steps, Captain Drez's crew was already descending toward Earth under the cover of darkness. Their small, stealth-equipped vessel slipped through the atmosphere undetected, landing in a remote area not far from Elias's lab. The scavengers moved swiftly, scanning for traces of the anomaly's energy signature. Spread out, Drez ordered, his voice low and commanding. Find whatever caused that disturbance. And if you encounter any humans, make sure they don't live to tell the tale. But Drez underestimated the humans and the unseen guardians watching over them. From his ship, Zorath observed the rogue crew's movements with a growing sense of urgency. They're getting too close, he said, rising from his seat. Prepare the transport beam. I'm going down there myself. Verna's eyes widened. Commander, with all due respect, that's too risky. Let me. No, Zorath interrupted. This is my responsibility. Humanity may not know it yet, but they're standing on the edge of something monumental. I won't let these scavengers push them over. As Zorath prepared to intervene, Elias and Mia worked late into the night, unaware of the dangers converging on their small lab. The faint hum of their equipment was the only sound, but in the stillness, both of them felt a strange sense of anticipation, as though they were standing on the brink of an incredible discovery, or an unimaginable disaster. The night stretched long and heavy, a stillness hanging over the lab that felt almost unnatural. Inside, Elias adjusted the controls of his equipment for the 100th time, his movements careful but restless. The data from the anomaly looped on a nearby screen, casting shifting blue and green hues across his furrowed face. Maya sat at her workstation, biting her lip as she cross-referenced their findings with every scrap of information she could pull from scientific journals and encrypted files she wasn't entirely authorized to access. This doesn't make sense, she murmured, breaking the silence. If gravity is just a force, then why does the anomaly's pattern suggest intelligence? It's almost like it's alive. Elias paused, his hands hovering over the controls. He had been avoiding that thought all night, unwilling to say it aloud. But the data didn't lie. The energy spikes, the Fibonacci sequence, the strange resonance, none of it fit into the neat, predictable rules of physics. It was as though the anomaly had a will of its own, reaching out to them in a language they barely understood. I don't know, he admitted finally, sinking into a chair. But whatever it is, it's bigger than us. Bigger than anything we've ever studied. And if we're not careful. A loud crash outside interrupted him, followed by a strange guttural sound that sent shivers down both their spines. Maya shot Elias a panicked glance. What was that? Before he could answer, the power flickered, plunging the lab into brief darkness. When the lights returned, the hum of the equipment seemed louder, more ominous. Elias grabbed a flashlight and gestured for Mia to stay put. I'll check it out. Are you crazy? She hissed, grabbing his arm. You heard that noise. Whatever's out there isn't friendly. Elias hesitated but knew they couldn't ignore it. Something, or someone, was out there, and the anomaly had already attracted enough attention to make him wary. He took a deep breath, steeling himself, and nodded. Then we'll check it out together. Meanwhile, outside the lab, Drez's scavenger crew moved silently through the shadows, their scanners glowing faintly as they swept the area for residual energy signatures. The anomaly's trail led them straight to the lab, its faint hum still lingering in the air like an echo. One of Drez's lieutenants, a wiry creature with jagged, uneven scales, gestured toward the building. "Captain, the signal is strongest here. Whatever caused the anomaly is inside." Drez's lips curled into a cruel smile. "Good, let's make this quick." As the scavengers advanced, Zorath watched from a hidden vantage point, his form cloaked in a shimmering field of light that rendered him nearly invisible. He had arrived just moments before the scavengers, but even his advanced technology couldn't mask his unease. The humans inside the lab had no idea what was coming, and while Zorath had strict orders to avoid direct contact, he knew he couldn't stand by and do nothing. Through his communicator, he whispered to his ship's crew, "Maintain the cloaking field. I'll engage only if necessary." Inside the lab, Elias and Mia crept toward the entrance, their flashlight beams cutting through the darkness. The crash they had heard earlier came again, louder this time, followed by a scraping sound that sent Mia's heart racing. She gripped Elias's arm tightly, her breath shallow. "Maybe it's just an animal," she whispered, though even she didn't believe it. Before Elias could respond, the lab door burst open, its reinforced frame groaning under the force. Drez and his crew stormed inside, their alien forms towering and menacing. Elias and Mia froze, their minds struggling to process what they were seeing. The scavengers' glowing eyes scanned the room, locking onto the equipment at the center. "Humans," Drez sneered, his voice dripping with disdain, "always poking at things you don't understand." Elias stepped forward, his body trembling but his voice steady. "Who? What are you? And what do you want?" Drez chuckled, a low, guttural sound. "We're here for the anomaly. Whatever you've discovered belongs to us now. Stand aside, or I'll make sure you regret it." Maya tightened her grip on Elias's arm, her fear replaced by a spark of defiance. "You can't just take it. This is our work, our discovery." Drez's smirk deepened, and he took a menacing step toward them. "Oh, I can, and I will." Before he could make another move, a sudden burst of light filled the room. Zorath materialized in front of Elias and Mia, his cobalt form glowing with an otherworldly energy. The scavengers recoiled in surprise, their weapons drawn in an instant. "Leave them," Zorath commanded, his voice calm but firm. "This planet is under my protection." Drez's eyes narrowed, his smile vanishing. "Zorath, I should have known you'd be sniffing around here. Always playing the hero, aren't you?" "I'm not playing," Zorath replied evenly. "And I won't warn you again. Leave." For a moment, the room was silent, the tension so thick it was almost tangible. Drez weighed his options, his hand hovering over his weapon. But he wasn't foolish enough to challenge Zorath outright. Not yet. "Very well," Drez said finally, his tone mocking. "We'll leave for now, but this isn't over." With a flick of his hand, Drez signaled his crew to retreat. They vanished into the night, leaving Elias and Mia staring at Zorath in stunned silence. The alien turned to them, his amber eyes meeting theirs with a mixture of curiosity and concern.